Oh, we moved into this house in 1984, didn't we?
Yeah, I think it was 84 or 85.
What you're hearing is a conversation between former Northern Territory Minister Bess Price and her husband of more than 40 years, David. They're speaking with the Australian's reporter Liam Mendez.
Jacinta was born in 81.
Bess and David are the parents of the current Shadow Minister for Indigenous Australians, Jacinta Nampijinpa Price.
It was just this is an old Housing Commission house that we bought, and the house on the corner on the other side where Jacinta and her little mates would all get together and hang out and walk the street on weekends, hanging out with each other.
This former Housing Commission home has seen the ups and downs of political life, both Bess's and now her daughter's. Bess is a Warlpiri woman who lived in the bush near Yuendumu as a child. She had her own first child at 13 and is a survivor of domestic violence. She went to university, became a teacher, and has worked in and around Aboriginal communities her whole life. In the 2010s, she was a politician representing the Country Liberal Party, and she served as Cabinet Minister in several portfolios. Her daughter, Jacinta Nampijinpa Price, has suddenly become Australia's most famous politician, the central figure of the campaign against an Indigenous voice to Parliament, which was resoundingly defeated in Saturday's referendum.
At the outset, I want to say that while tonight's result is not one that I had hoped for, I absolutely respect the decision of the Australian people and the democratic process that has delivered it.
Jacinta Nampijinpa Price opposed the voice because she didn't believe it would solve the practical problems faced by Indigenous people: domestic violence, child abuse, and what she sees as rampant misogyny and abuse of women. She lives in Alice Springs, where children roam the streets at night, avoiding their own homes. The No campaign says Jacinta was a game changer. People who hadn't heard of her or heard her story were likely to be default yes voters. People who had heard of Jacinta Nampijinpa Price were likely to be no voters. She has a natural charisma, the campaign highlighted in a video about her family that went viral.
I don't want to see my family divided along the lines of race, because we are a family of human beings, and that's the bottom line.
But it also drew criticism, threats of violence and racist abuse. On Saturday, as millions of Australians voted in the referendum, Bess and Dave Price became targets. An egg was thrown at David as he did a TV interview. Later, that former Housing Commission home, where Jacinta grew up, was doused in paint and glass bottles were hurled onto their driveway and front yard. Jacinta Price described the incident on 2GB radio.
So, they're a target now. There's some pretty nasty individuals in Alice Springs who obviously don't like the outcome. So I guess my concern now and then is their safety. They shouldn't have to put up with that kind of nonsense. Nobody should have to put up with that kind of nonsense.
These kinds of attacks are nothing new to Bess Price.
I had to go tough skin because I could see the failures around me, and I needed to start talking openly about the real situation as what was happening to our Aboriginal people and to the women and children. And I decided, no, somebody has to talk about all these issues that nobody wants to talk about, and face the truth and let everyone know what exactly is going on, because it's not all culturally happy living out here in the desert. It's not.
Bess says she sees a lot of herself in her daughter.
She's lived it. She's lived the life that I talk about. Because of Dave and I just telling her, be yourself and you decide what's best. And so we kept that narrative going with her, and because, I had threats. I was told I was a coconut, and I was told, you don't know what you're talking about, and I was called, like a racist as well. And I just kept going. I said, no, I'm going to keep fighting. And nobody is going to stop me from what I have to say. Mm-hmm. And I guess, she saw a lot of that she's now taken on. But she's got a better understanding of everything because she's got your side.
Well, she knows both sides.
Both sides, that's right.
Jacinta Price argued the voice would be divisive rather than unifying. Her belief that problems aren't solved through separatism has been percolating since she was a kid.
We wanted to be politically correct, so we took Jacinta to the Aboriginal Controlled Childcare Congress.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the look on her face
On her face?
when I came to pick her up after leaving her with strangers for the first time in her little life. She had this really dark look on her face. And as I'm leaving, she says, "I don't want to go there." And I said, "Well, you know, Mummy works and I work and you've got to go somewhere and somebody's got to look after you." She says, "I'm not bloody going there." Yeah, right. I want to go to the one with the fog out the front. There was another childcare place that was just an open community one. She wanted to go there.
Yeah.
So we put her there and she was fine. So she's always had that attitude that I want to be like everybody else. I don't want to be special and separate, and right from when she was a kid.
Jacinta Price has a strongly feminist take on traditional Aboriginal culture.
I have had men from Aboriginal communities stand up and say, "Oh, Jacinta's not recognised as a leader," and all these things because, well, in traditional culture I'm not, right? I'm just a young woman. I'm not as important as our big cultural men are, even in Australia in 2023. But I'm a bit of a rebel like my mother, and I suggest we need some positive cultural reform so that our rights can be recognised as equal to our men.
Women, she'll fight for them because they're the strongest. A group of people who know what's going on and know what needs to take place, and they have their grandchildren, great-grandchildren with them, and once they go, there'll be nobody there to speak up for them. And this is what's happening now. And I think Jacinta's, because of that experience, Jacinta's taken that role on to be that voice for them.
Yeah.
And that's why she's so strong, because she's seen, ever since, she's 43, she's lived through all of that, and she's tired of seeing it still being played out without anybody trying to help her or help these people to actually get a better, life, a safe environment, for the kids, women and kids.
These are women who don't have megaphones. Their voices are deliberately suppressed by the organisations because they don't agree with their narrative. And the ABC aren't going to interview them. But the other thing is, most of the blokes are in trouble, but there's some very large, very strong Wallaby men who adore Jacinta and would kill for her. I mean, they've come up and said, "You tell my sister, if anybody touches her, we'll get them for her. We'll sort them out." So she's got, it's not just men against women.